Firstly, thank you all for joining for the session, as well as to all the speakers and dignitaries for accepting our request, and also to Divya and to Dr. Jayan for initiating this wonderful initiative. On behalf of Headstart team, welcomes you all, and I look forward to seeing for much dynamic session and to see a lot of more things coming out of this particular program. Handing over to you, Dinesh sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. D.K. Agarwal. Just for introduction, I am managing as a Additional Director Research in Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences, deemed to be University, Karar. And on behalf of the Krishna family, on behalf of all our executives, our Chancellor, I welcome all our organizer partners, all co-organizers, all the supporters, those have made successful this event, our ecosystem partner, our tech commercialization partner. Dear friends, I will just introduce about the event impact, which has been very well chalked out. I should be thankful rather to Mr. Mukesh and Dr. Jayan Pawar and all you, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Mrs. Neelam Mishra has also joined. Mishra Madam, I welcome to attend this program. In my opinion, when I look the scenario of overall IP policies and the development of the intellectual property at the country level, the India is lagging behind at the international level. And the major reason why the India is lagging behind is because the research, basic research, which is required very much for the patents and other intellectual property right, the research is carried out by the higher education institutions. And in our country, the higher education institutions mainly on the privatization hand. And they have their own limitations to fund the research. They are funding a very major of their budget, almost 30% of the budget of the institute in my institution are assigned to the research only. But even then, to develop the IP full-fledgedly, even at the country level, the government system should fund the IP policies in the academic institutions. And 2 years back, when the startup has come into the picture, there are many governmental organizations, those are funding. So the basic idea to keep this event in this form, the inventor or the innovators with a good idea, with a scientific idea, with a technical idea should come forward. And they should participate along with the startups, Headstarts, incubation centers. So they should come with the idea and incubate the technology, they should get the facility. So we are there. We are the institution, we are located in the rural areas, and we are doing, in our opinion, is a very huge or the fantastic or up to our satisfaction, the work of the research. We are there to fund the research, for the research, to create the intellectual property. But that is not only the sufficient. The innovators are a number of innovations, those are carried out in our countrymen. They should approach to the institution. The institutions like KIMSDU is committed to fund them and to complete the project in such a manner that it should be incubated. Our campus can help in incubation of technology. We all the people together can help the innovations to reach to the society. So with this particular idea, actually, the impact event where the innovation, as we are working in the medical domain and allied sciences domain, pharmaceutical domain. These are blending to each other. And after blending, the role of the technology during the COVID, after the blending, there are n number of innovation has created. Even in our institutions, there are n numbers of patents, interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary. These mini researchers has been created. During the COVID, what I have particularly observed, the technology has facilitated to manage the COVID problem faced by the society. I can quote some of the examples. The drone technology. The drone technology in the global perspective has been benefited to deliver the medicines, to deliver the vaccines, to deliver the important goods to the reachable place, which is unreachable areas. So in this way, when I enter into the hotel and restaurant industry, we look at the preparation of the ordered material is totally automation. हम डोसा बनाने के लिए जाते हैं और डोसा वहां पे उनके किचन में जाते हैं तो देखते हैं इट इज प्रिपेयर्ड solely automatically. There is no hand touch. So I believe that such type of the automation, such type of the devices, even in the medical domain, the COVID situation has accelerated the interaction between the patient and the medicos. That has been accelerated. In the food industry, it has been accelerated. Online education and assessment tools, mobile applications with so many of the games for entertainment has been introduced in the day-to-day life at the global platform. And I'm sure in continuing with the same profile, this platform will nurture the new innovations and will come out with the impactful deliverables which will help the society in working in a homogeneous and fearless environment. Friends, this Impact Award has been nomenclatured after our beloved late Honorable Shri Jayavantrao Bhosle, founder chairman of this Krishna institution, which is working in the medical sciences. We are committed to extend the technical and financial support for the students, faculty, researchers, inventors, startups for Indian patent filing to encourage innovations in the healthcare domain and the associated allied domains too. The eligible applicants after this impact, when they are going to submit their innovations or ideas on the portal, which we are going to open for 2 months, and after the scrutiny by the juries, after the assessment, when the award will be declared. So these innovators will be helping complete support for IP through IPR cell of our university, that is Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences, deemed to be university, as per our own IPR policy. These achievers of the Impact Award will be entitled to have 3-month incubation support at KIMSDU, and in my considered opinion, the 3-month incubation is more than sufficient. So we have worked out the 2-day program in such a module where the innovations for COVID-19 pandemic and Indian startups, general overview on the innovations in COVID-19, which I have also discussed earlier in this conversation, different players in startup ecosystem and their roles, and leveraging ecosystem support for startup growth. Another part of this is filing of trademark, patents, importance in academia and industry, because not only academic institutions, the industries plays an important role for intellectual property as an asset and type of IP. importance of patent and trademark and availability of government funds to file the IP, what is the appropriate time to file the patent, the quality of the research. These are the best approaches to follow while filing a patent. And dear friends, definitely with the help of all our associate friends, we would be ahead and we would be achieving the targeted goal. After I assure Madam Vice Chancellor, after the 2 days program, the deliverables, even after the 2 months, the deliverables which is to be delivered to the society will be benefited to the society. And with this assurance, and a lot many thanks to all our associate friends those are on this platform, a lot many participants those are attending this program, I would request them to please come out with your idea, to communicate on the link. The link will be provided tomorrow. On that link, you share your idea, you participate with your innovation, and we are there to take care. We are committed to take care. With this concluding remark, I just finish my introductory speech, and over to the Honorable Vice Chancellor to please address the gathering. Dr. Neela Krishna.
Thank you, Dr. D.K. Agarwal, sir. A very good afternoon to each and every person. Now, this program of Impact Award is Innovation in Medical, Pharmaceutical and Allied Sciences for Commercialization of Technology. And the second day event, that is IP Conclave, Boosting Technological Innovation for COVID-19 Pandemic. This particular program, first of all, I want to give all my best wishes, and this program definitely will be successful and very beneficial to everyone. This is organized by Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences, deemed to be University, Karad, Maharashtra, Headstart Network Foundation, Bangalore, Karnataka, and Atal Incubation Center, Manipal University, Jaipur. It is co-organized by SPPU Research Park Foundation, SPPU Pune, supported by Atal Incubation Mission, Niti Aayog through AIC-MUJ, and the ecosystem partners are IIT-M Bioincubator, IIT Madras Bioincubation, Atal Incubation Center, LMCP, OJAS Accelerator, IIT Hyderabad, Manipal University, Jaipur, and the technical commercialization partner are ITTO, FITT, IIT Delhi. So this, our institute, the Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences, deemed to the university, being a health institute operated in medical, paramedical and allied science domain, has been engaged in transactional research for more than 3 decades into this segment, and has developed 20 plus technologies which are patented, developed many indigenous products, did technical transfers for many of them, and with state-of-the-art facility and in-house research and development lab, have supported 2,000 plus students by providing complete accesses. Moving one step further, in 2017, when Startup India initiative was launched by Government of India to totally move the focus in creating world-class setup ecosystem and towards making India a global research and development hub, Krishna Institute set up Honorable Shri Jayentrao Bhosle Innovation and Incubation Center, JBIIC, and formulated its research policy, keeping startup, technology development and IP at core focus. Since then, a total of 40 patents has been filed, 16 granted, and more than 50 lakh funds have been dispersed to manage IPR activities during last 3 years for faculties and students to actively focus on technology and prototype development. A lot of research work is being carried out in KIMSDU University, this Krishna Institute, related to healthcare and allied sciences domain. The departments like medicine, dentistry, physiotherapy, nursing, and pharmacy and biotechnology involved in the interdisciplinary translational research activities to fulfill the healthcare requirements of the society and to the remote areas of the region. Some of the sectors where scholars, startups, and researchers at KIMS University working are biomedical devices and techniques, infectious diseases, pharmacology, herbal drug technology, cancer biology, disease diagnosis and prevention under medical biotechnology, innovative dental practices, innovative physiotherapy practices, innovative nursing practices, and integrative and evidence-based statistical study on community medicine. Additionally, some research group at Krishna Institute working on interdisciplinary biomedical research areas include synthesis and formulation of compounds on medicinal importance, nanosensors, nanomedicine, neuroscience and surgery, cardiac surgery, genetic study of diseases and disorders, molecular diagnosis of diseases, non-communicable disease like cancer, hypertension, diabetes and biotechnology. So these are the few details that is from our institute. And for this, I should not forget to mention our convener, Dr. Jayant Pawar, and our coordinator, Dr. D.K. Agrawal. So my all the best wishes for this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wishes. Good evening to all. I welcome all the dignitaries and participants on this forum. First, I would like to thank Dr. Neelam Mishra, ma'am, Honorable Vice Chancellor, KIMSDU, and Dr. D.K. Agrawal, sir, Additional Director of Research, for the views and obviously about the innovations in medical domain. I also thank all our patron, chief patron, and advisory committee of university. See, in continuation to launching of this Impact Award program, it's a flagship initiative to nurture the translational research and innovations in the field of healthcare. Today on this occasion, we have a very vibrant speaker to talk about the possibilities and opportunities for the translational research, innovations and entrepreneurships in the healthcare domain. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in for a real treat today. So here we have our first renowned speaker, Dr. Biju Jacob. He is the country director at UN Health Innovation Exchange, HIX. Also, the co-founder of Helium Digital Healthcare. He is academically trained as a medical geneticist and a serial entrepreneur by passion. He has advised more than 100 biomedical and healthcare startups in conceptualization, building and running new ventures through Start Health Unite Seed Fund ventures, then Camtech General Hospitals, and he is a recipient of BIRAC Innovation Award in 2014. He has received ISBA National Award for Entrepreneurship in 2010 and CV Raman Young Scientist Award in 2007. So without any further ado, I'll hand it over to Dr. Jacob. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jayant. I hope I live up to the expectation of the introduction what you have given right now. But I'm pleased and very excited to be here addressing the innovative gathering here. Great to hear from Dr. Agrawal and Dr. Neelima, and great work as KIMSDU and Headstart is putting together, especially on an area where we need to really work hard, which is the IP space. So I thought I would talk about some of the activities which we do from the new initiative of UN called Health Innovation Exchange. But before getting into that, the space of translational research, clinical research, even taking idea to an enterprise level is something which is very close to my heart. Most of my career, I've been doing translation research. I have set up one of the first translation research in a corporate hospital setting, and been running it as a corporate head in Narayana Health Group of hospitals. While IP and technology adoption takes some time, when it comes to mainstream other technologies, maybe the consumer technologies and others, it's comparatively easier to get adopted to the consumers rather than it getting picked up in practice in medicine. So working with the clinicians who have got a blend of research interest and bringing that into enterprise was something which was a challenging journey and a great experience over last decade for me. And I'm so excited that there is an initiative coming from a private medical school to promote innovations, promote IP. And I'm sure the young medical professionals who come in there would be basically brought up in a culture which is very much needed. Like we see in most of the advanced economies, you have a mandatory stream of research and continuing medical education for all the medical practitioners. And research is not a mandatory thing when it comes to Indian medical fraternity, but things are changing for good. But I'm sure this kind of initiatives would really help a lot. On the go, I would really like to have a more understanding about this. So I represent UN Health Innovation Exchange, a program which is started in 2019, founded by UNAIDS. It's launched in the World Health Assembly in 2019. And it's a new attempt comparing to the usual programs which is done by multinational orgs like UN, where most of the programs used to be country level program specific. Usually there would be country offices where there'd be investments for specific programs which would be put in along with the governments, and then it's done over so many years of the plan. The whole idea behind Health Innovation Exchange was, can we bet on the purpose-driven entrepreneurs who always have changed the world, who always have actually made a difference in the economic progress. So Mukesh is changing the slides from background. Thank you so much for that. I would tell you, I would probably go little on top of the slides. I've put together only a few of them, but key things I will come forward and I'll give you a cue to change, Mukesh. Thank you for that. So as I mentioned, rather than the traditional way, if at all changes have happened for good globally, or what we call a social progress index for each of the countries, which work towards SDG goals or sustainable development goals, where all the leaders of many countries come together, and we've committed for this social development goal 2030 in 2015, and each of the country work towards those progress indexes. And how do we reach there? So there are two approaches to it. One is we monitoring from multinational orgs and supporting the social enterprises or social programs which government put together along with the priority industry segment. We thought the acceleration where we've been falling little short earlier, even pre-COVID, and now after COVID, we would have gone little below the targets. Can we put in investment and support to purpose-driven entrepreneurs and startups to make a difference? So the pain points when it comes to healthcare as such for country is usually there's a poor understanding of the available technologies, and also creating an index of what is available and understanding what are the key problems or challenges which it works in a fragmented form. So as Health Innovation Exchange, with our access, we work with the ministries of health, ministers them directly, and create this index for them. Or we could say, like, you would have heard about digital index, which we do before a digital transformation for India, which is something which we all are familiar about. Likewise in health, what are the technologies which is available, what are the infrastructures available, what are the key problems which you need to address, align it with the budget and the investments which they do. So that's one of the activities which we do with our convening power and soft diplomacy with multiple countries. Then there is a siloed approach which is attempted by them, which we get them integrated, connected through technology. We get the industry together, which is done from our headquarters in Geneva. Then we look at the investment gaps. We know that many innovations have been supported. We have got a great system supporting early stage investments. When you look at BIRAC would have invested on several incubators, the DST would have done. There's so many innovators in the early stage being done. But many of them, after a proof of principle, reaches to a stage where they really struggle to get the proof of principle taken into a clinical trial. They struggle to get into probably getting adopted in the market, doing the sales for that, doing a design for manufacturing, taking it into large sector. So this probably we say is a value of death for many of the innovations. Most of the ecosystem actually work towards pushing the value of death from one place to other, but there is no solution where it actually brings it to a sustainability. So working with scale-up, large venture funds, government programs, DFIs, we try to do that scale-up investment for selected companies. And that's what we do in the scaling approach. And then we do the solution for market fragmentation by consolidating that with the bigger players. Maybe some of the technologies don't want to take it to themselves to a larger scale quickly. We get them into a larger players who have got access, get them into public procurement system. So that's something which we do on a global. So I'll go to the next slide. Mukesh, can you help me with that? So solution, what we have done is an impartial platform, which is hosted by the UN system, founded by UNAIDS, supported by WHO, UNITAR, UNIDO, all the systems together. And this platform, pre-COVID, we used to have experience centers, which is set up in Geneva, where frequently we used to have delegations from all the ministries. Top selected innovations we put out for demonstration there, and we just give them a touch and feel of it, and then get adopted into that. We also started developing something called a marketplace program. So we do all the quarters events in respective countries, and the selected innovations or startups, which is in the scales from multiple geographies, are taken into this marketplaces, and then we facilitate a pilot with some of the ministries, independently or with the local infrastructure there. We also bring in a shareable expertise. We also help in policies. Like if you look at one of the countries of the state doesn't have the adequate IT infrastructure or policy around it, or Dr. Agarwal mentioned about drones. To make this happen, we need to have a sandbox approach. So we set up those kind of controlled setting in the respective governments and work with them. As this process have matured over 2019 end, we launched India Accelerator Program. In India, we are hosted by BIRAC and from the private sector, Social Alpha, which is working in the same ideology of investing in social progress through entrepreneurs who are committed entrepreneurs. So we are in the early stages of putting out this infrastructure. As a priority, we are setting up three basic aspects. One is creating something called Health Technology Assessment Program, which is like the problem of clinical trials, which we discussed about, addressing that problem by working with multiple consumer governments and try to see that the acceptance of Indian technologies are there, irrespective of that getting through a CE or FDA process, which is prolonged. So if it's needed technologies, we can actually go through them. Second, we are creating a blended finance instrument, which support the early stage companies. Third, we take them to the international scale program. Next slide, please. So this is in snapshot what we achieved. We've convened the leaders from 50 ministers so far. We have had 4,000 participants in our events. We've championed innovations. 50 innovations are there in the pipeline, which is mapped towards the impact of SDGs. We've got a global COVID-19 innovation mapping and indexing done. We've also mobilized 200 mil funding so far, and noticeably we have brought in 10 cents insulin for the emerging economies, which was with the support of Biocon in UN General Assembly last year. Next slide, please. This is pretty much some of the slides from our events, where how do we do the experience program is something which is given there. I end my talk with two things specific to the program which we've launched. One is to the innovation community. We are really looking forward for fundamental innovations or the disruptive innovations, which has reached to a MVP stage. We're looking for taking them into multiple states where we have our partner network, or outside where that can be taken for scale. Through this program, we would like to open and offer that. We also facilitate some of the large scale investment opportunity for them. For the group here, I see that there is a esteemed panel of dignitaries here working from multiple IP to academia sector here. Even though the capital markets itself is, if you look at it, it's crossed 100 trillion globally, and 52% of that is intangible assets or IT driven intangible assets value. But there is no system with which we as India able to evaluate the merit of deep tech or IP early on and support those innovators, or probably taking IP as a collateral, giving support to develop that IP further. So I think we should have a unified approach. One part is something which this is a start right now, but later on to look at a unified approach to kind of bringing in value to the IP, identifying the one which can make a difference, and not just with the kind of enterprise velocity, but if it is something which is valuable, can we get it transferred into executive in residence or entrepreneurial in residence program, where there are proven people who can take the enterprises, transfer that and make a difference, and also support a system. Maybe we could work with WIPO or any of our partners and create a system with which we can put in value to this kind of intellectual property. With this, I end my talk. Thank you so much, and looking forward to working together for this, and good luck.
Okay. It's really nice session, sir. Thank you for your presence and insightful guidance to our audience. It's really very nice to hear you. Once again, thank you so much for being part of this program. Yes. So after this wonderful session, moving ahead in this event, we have our next vibrant speaker, Professor Narayanan. He's a scientist and research manager at IIT Madras, by Incubator, with experience and both interdisciplinary knowledge of diverse fields spanning from fundamental cellular and molecular biotechnology to applied bio-nanotechnology and point-of-care molecular diagnostics. Professor Narayanan is having decades of experience in scientific management, then research and innovation. To his credit, he has 30 plus projects, 50 plus international conferences, and more than 30 workshops he delivered. He also worked as a senior scientist and research manager at Sci-Fi Lab, Stockholm University, Sweden, and is recipient of prestigious Marie Curie Research Fellowship, Sweden, Max Planck Fellowship, then DBB Visiting Researchers Fellowship. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Narayanan. Over to you, Professor Narayanan.
Thank you, Dr. Jain, for your very kind introduction. And at the outset, it's my immense pleasure to be here in this event platform with all the dignitaries here. And then my special thanks also to Dr. Agarwal and then Dr. Mishra for their kind introductory notes gracing this occasion. And also especially to the Headstart team, Mukesh and Taha who are here, and also Gautam and Vanya who are around. So I'm just trying to share my screen. Please give me a second. Very nice. So today I will be just talking about the broader ecosystem perspective with special reference to healthcare biotechnology ventures, taking IIT Madras Bioincubator, where I belong to, as a modern ecosystem. So I thought that this would somehow give an insight into the exact structure, function, as well as the operational dynamics associated with any specific healthcare ecosystem, and then more specifically with translation and commercialization technologies that have changing and marking potential in Indian society. So with this outset, for the next 20 minutes, I will be guiding you through the model concepts of ecosystem, especially for the student participants who are a bit novel to the theme. And then I will start introducing IT Madras ecosystem with special references to some of the functional aspects that we are associating here. And then I would move on into IT Madras Bio Incubator with a special healthcare focus and industry biotechnology focus sector. And I would also talk about some cross-sectional aspects of technology transfer, many of which Dr. Atal has very beautifully highlighted in his introductory note. And then I will give you a brief summary. So as we see here for the ecosystem per se, you see a turtle here, and then the big fishes, small fishes, soil, rock, water, and all of which offer together a structural as well as a functional diversity, which in turn come together for a dynamics. So basically, it is this dynamics with a biotic as well as abiotic system that marks a classical ecosystem. But then when we translate this to an innovation ecosystem, it is exactly such people as well as process-oriented aspects that make the dynamics of an innovation ecosystem. So when we start about a startup, when we talk about a spin-off company, what exactly happens is a group of people coming together with some fundamental as well as creative thinking, supported by incubators, accelerators, etc., funded heavily or lightly or moderately by funding agencies, including startup funds, and also some laboratory and other infrastructure facilities that might be, which in turn join hands together in marking the innovation potential. So there is a structure that one needs to focus on the diversity in setting up the whole structure and also the focus area. So the very title of this event, if you see, it ranges from medical, moving to pharmaceutical and allied sciences encompassing, for instance, biomedical, nursing, and many other sectors. So we have crossed those stages that talk about, sector agnostic or very broader sectors, but moving into a kind of melting pot when one comes into multidisciplinary and intersectoral aspects crossing boundaries. And it's exactly where proper infrastructure needs to be provided in terms of goods and services, forming a baseline which might then move on into operational dynamics where it is never unilateral. So it also needs to move from the startup to the ecosystem or the incubation units, and also vice versa. Likewise, there is a cause and effect chain that is functionally knitting everything together. And at the end, you have something that is economically productive and also those goods that are recycled, which can be in the form of products, which can be in the form of processes, which can be in the form of tools and technologies also. And at the end, one needs to connect the structure and operation, which can happen by a proper interfacing. And when we talk about this interfacing, it's just a very good management, which all of us need to do at some point or the other, be it academia, research, or the incubation units. And then what also needs to have about sustainable goals. So Dr. Priyu Jacob nicely talked about these sustainable goals that needs to have a very good focus, with which UN has made it mandatory even in many of the European applications, as well as the trend is also following up in India. So the faster we move ahead and catch up with these goals, the better we are towards a safer and sustainable economy. So with all this, one should also not forget the degradation and the decline that inherently happens in any system, and innovation ecosystem is not an exception to this rule. So with all this, I also bring forward to you with this complex ecosystem mapping. For example, the specific one is from Singapore, but we will come back again with special reference to where we are. But what I want to highlight is that, there are various sectors that come together, starting from government sectors, accelerators and incubators, venture capitalists, early stage investors, funding agencies, co-working spaces, which are crossing and spanning the boundaries of space and all these normal limitations that are stopping the spin-off to succeed. And on the other side, you also have educational institutions that support, like this wonderful event that is even currently being organized now, and the media promoting concepts, etc. But just remember that the ecosystem mapping is not as simple as you see here. It can be quite dynamic from government sector, jointly focusing hands to launch events, and also connecting together with investment opportunities like Bioreactors, etc. So the message of this slide is that a very networking opportunity that lies in front of almost all partners of the ecosystem. And here I put forward the research technology operation units of European Union, for instance, with the Research and Technology Organization as a model criteria, which starts with a very simple idea, move towards a project and process development, and then a startup being launched, and which in turn will have a process flow that I'll be showing it to you in the next slide. And also, in the operational dynamics, you have some infrastructure support, license, and this technology transfer, commercialization, product securing, and all these aspects. But the beauty of such of these integrated approaches is that a single entity like RTO is going to take care of the entire process flow. Unlike in our ecosystems, where each and every unit is moved from one sector to another, which is good and bad in its own terminologies, and how exactly this happens, for instance, with a healthcare-focused operational ecosystem in our environment is, we start like the classical, it's again for some of the new student participants who are hearing about the innovation deep tech ecosystem for the first time. We start with the ideology or the idea, and then we move towards the proof of concept prototyping. And there comes the customer discovery, where one needs first to identify the market. And once this is done, they move towards a MVP or the market viable product, and also coming up with business models that encompasses value proposition and lean canvas, etc. And then we always have the tech transfer that is covering licensing policies and the scale up, which also has a lot of other factors that needs to be given attention. And at the end, you have an established company that can go towards marketing, validation, etc. And then this spans around, research lab stage, pre-incubation, incubation, acceleration, especially in terms of mature startups, etc., which also involves sometimes pivoting or many times iterating concepts where one needs to go back and forth along this horizontal workflow that I showed you around. And how exactly this happens for a healthcare startup is that, you start with an ideology moving across the technology readiness levels, where you have prototypes, you have validation stages, you have validation of the prototypes in the actual operational environment until you go to the actual stage of the product by itself. So with this background, I'm already moving into the IIT Madras ecosystem, where we have a very well-connected support from a lot of centers at different diverse levels, what you see here. For instance, you have the national research centers, you have the institute research centers, you also have various research facilities, all of which give their own expertise, infrastructure, and operational dynamics to grow and further the whole ecosystems in order to support not only startups but also a healthy interactions, bilateral or multilateral interaction that I was talking to you about in my first slide. So you have the National Cancer Tissue Bank, you have Indo-German Centers for Sustainability, you have the more emerging trends of nanophotonics and MEMS kind of systems, and then you have various focus areas that are translational oriented, also supporting the public and government enterprises, like for instance railway research, and also postal as well as portal technologies, so on and so forth. And then you also have very specific, sophisticated instrumentation facilities, which the early startups might not be able to afford at all. So all these research facilities do not cater only to the use of IIT Madras users, but also at an extended level where the whole ecosystem can get benefited. So with this model background of the Institute Center, one also have innovation-specific centers, and I have just brought in here 3 such centers for your perusal. So the first thing is ICSR, Industrial Consultancy and Sponsored Research, that actually deals with almost every kind of sponsored projects, including government projects, industrial projects, and many such projects that come into the purview of the IIT Madras faculty as well as the project staff. So it is also the actual legal unit. So why I want to show you this slide is to understand that there are various small operational aspects that are involved when one needs to grow along with the ecosystem, which I think is also the current goal of the activities that are being discussed here. And then we have the Gopal Krishna Deshpande Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, whose flagship program is Incubate or Incubate, where they support almost all translational readiness levels across the chain, especially focusing on the tech transfer from R&D towards moving on and identifying the customer. So they also have an online entrepreneurial training open throughout the year. And then we also have C5, which is the Center for Innovation, where we have, kind of tinkering labs, fix and play, and then plug and play modules with entrepreneur cell, etc. So with all these stuff, we also have the broader research part that is very new based on MIT Research Park kind of modeling here in India, which is India's first university-based research park with a very big land area and very big workable space also, where almost many departments, many faculty, research scholars, students, high-tech laboratories, every expertise holding unit of the IIT Madras join hands together in order to further the whole ecosystem as a whole. And this especially is a beehive not only for the units that I have mentioned here, but also for a very healthy industry-academia collaboration, which becomes very, very attractive and indispensable for early startup kind of ventures. And with this, I show here Incubation Cell, which is the nodal agency of incubation in IIT Madras Research Park. And as you see here with these numbers, it's also not important how many incubatees that we host, but also important is how many incubatees move into the startup, graduate into the startup, and how many of them are able to sustain in the market for a longer run, generating jobs that create micro niches and generating, revenue and income that is going to keep the whole ecosystem and niches very active in terms of their operational dynamics. And as you see here, these startup founders come from a very diverse fraternity, like faculty, alumni, project staff, students, and also from outside. And you see here the span of the sectors that these startups cater to. And very interestingly, healthcare and medical technology sector is a very emerging and booming sector in the recent years. And the ecosystem, you see here, the IIT Madras Incubator, the Healthcare Technology Incubator and Innovation Center, the MedTech Incubator, the Rural Technology Incubator, and many, many incubators coming together in a single infrastructural unit and then trying to support the ecosystem. And then, the support is just not from the ecosystem itself. This is the slide that I was talking to you about in the complex ecosystem mapping of Singapore. So here, we also have in our own terminologies, the government that gives support both in terms of center as well as in terms of state, Entrepreneurship Development Unit, and then BIRAC and Atal Innovation Mission, etc. And corporate social responsibility grants and support from industries and public sector undertakings from the government as well as the moves, and then other units and also the key investors who keep the revenue as well as the finance of these sectors that are very indispensable for the startup. So here also in Indian market and Indian setup, we need to have a very dynamic and robust and integrated background in order to move the ecosystem further. And with this, I'm now moving on to the bio incubator, where we have around 10,000 square feet unit, and my colleague Dr. Priya will be talking tomorrow as a senior incubation manager of bio incubator in detail about all the structural and functional aspects of the bio incubator. But here I just want to give you a very broad glimpse that we do a lot of capacity building and such training of the people, generating skills that is very important and interesting for the ecosystem to grow. It's an important factor in providing support. And likewise, you also to have visibility in terms of making the startups being recognized by both national and international units is another area. And as a bio incubator, we do incubation activities, we do some sponsored research, we also do some, faculty mentorship and training in order to keep the whole ecosystem sustainable. And this is the sustainability point that I was talking to you about on the very first ecosystem model slide. And here, focused on the healthcare ecosystem of the bio incubator, the very thematic of the current platform, I would like to tell you that we at the bio incubator host diagnosis-focused healthcare, therapeutics-focused healthcare, biomedicine-focused healthcare units, and also we host a huge range of product devices like, point of care, bioproducts, microfluidic devices, mosquito trapping device, what you see here. So based on pheromones that can attract and kill mosquitoes in order to prevent vector-borne diseases like dengue, chikungunya, malaria, and whatnot. And what you see here is an ICMR-validated COVID-19 diagnostic kit that is close to going into the market. And you also see here microfluidic-based devices that are interfacing diagnostics and therapeutics. And also you have a lot of other graduated startups that are doing good in terms of healthcare biotechnology in the market. And we also have huge support from BIRAC and Early Translation Accelerator. This ETA kind of concept is very interesting, especially even for units like, new universities that want to move ahead of this classical incubation system. So ETA takes lead from academia. It implements an agency like incubator or accelerator where it can get scaled up, and then it hands over the product to the industry that can easily commercialize it. So these units are very important. And Dr. Agarwal was again talking about, the contribution and cross-section of this technology transfer. And interestingly, I have it here in terms of numbers. And what you see here is some motivation for all these startups that might want to expand in the area of medical and health sciences technologies. And usually a lot of strategies are adapted by young universities that are coming to be highly visible in this ecosystem. So, they organize exhibitions, they organize platforms like this, they call for tenders, so they promote their IP. This Impact launch event is a wonderful initiative, like many of which other incubators also need to follow, in my opinion. And how much of these public and private universities spend on their R&D activities is not only important, but also how much of revenue is gotten back from all these expenditures is a factor that needs to be considered. With all these points, the take-home message is quite simple. One needs to be aware of the tech transfer and other patterns that's happening in the ecosystem. One needs to know, like how Dr. Jacob mentioned, an integrated way to comprehend strategies that are lying in front of the ecosystem, sector-specific definition, how to attract the licensee, etc. And very importantly, industry, academia, technology transfer, in not just identifying the incubation cell, but also having qualified personnel. We just cannot bring, untrained people and then try to move the ecosystem ahead. So that's another way at a rudimentary level that can work good. But then once we talk about mature ecosystem, the personnel needs to be qualified, where capacity building events will be very supportive. And at the end of the day, we need to have utilitarian approach. We need to have visibility. We need to have proper knowledge transfer and also technology transfer officers that just do not exist for the namesake, to get ranking from AICTE or NIRF, but also that are functionally viable and providing dynamics and life to the whole ecosystem. So I end up this talk by quoting Albert Einstein, where we need to realize that innovation is everyone's responsibility and not just R&D. So with this note, I thank you once again all, and then open this forum. Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Professor Narayan, it was a really wonderful session, I must say. I'm sure our audience also have enjoyed this session. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time and being part of this program. Thank you for extending your support in this event. In future also, we would like to join with you, and we'll do some good work together.
Pleasure, Dr. Jain. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, so in continuation with this wonderful session, the next speaker we have with us is Mr. Mohammed Amil. But let me check whether he joined. Mr. Mohammed Amil?
Yes, sir, has joined.
Yeah, okay. So, Mr. Mohammed Amil is a head primary healthcare technology and innovations at PATH, which is a global non-profit organization dedicated to health equity. He is having a decade of experience working on medical devices, biomedical healthcare domain. At PATH, as a portfolio leader, he directly oversees the design and implementation of Tata's PHC's Technology and Innovation Program, technology policy. So let's welcome, I would like to welcome Mr. Mohammed Amil to share his views.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Jayant. First of all, apologies, I am on a transit, so we'll be speaking over the transit, but I hope I'll be able to do justice with that. I'll just switch off my video in that interest. So thank you for having me at this important meeting. I know innovation in medical, pharmaceutical and allied sciences for commercialization of technology impact award launch is an important, crucial event. So basically, innovation is our best bet to truly bend the curve in global health, to save and improve more lives, eliminate more diseases, and deliver on the promise of sustainable goals. Innovation is transforming global efforts to improve health, including the world's most vulnerable communities, by harnessing the power of new ideas and channeling the expertise of a diverse ecosystem of partners, networks, and also systems. This is a very wide ecosystem. Innovation is fueling health solutions that are more effective, more accessible, and less expensive than ever before. By equipping community health workers with simple, affordable technologies, we can deliver essential health services right to the doorstep of vulnerable families, enabling countries to leapfrog slower, more traditional paths to improve the health of their people. Today, game-changing breakthroughs are coming from every corner of the globe. Innovations come from scrappy startups in India and entrepreneurs in South Africa inspired by first-hand knowledge of their community needs. It comes from cross-sector partnerships and enterprising underfunded investors. Sometimes it comes from the most unlikely of sources. Yet the truth is, we have only begun to tap innovation's radical potential. Challenges on the way, why, when, and why ideas fail. Over the past decades or so, the technology industry has undergone massive growth thanks to a surge of government funding or innovations. There is an array of incubators and accelerators supporting health technologies, and the talent of entrepreneurs and engineers is impressive, not only for their technical skill, but for the passion they bring to improving health. However, even in this robust environment, many innovations never reach patients and providers or systems that need them the most. Many product developers I have interacted with mention that even after successfully deploying a prototype, they were unable to introduce it into the market. Not because the product didn't function or solve a problem, but because there were obstacles along the way from idea to impact. By contrast, the necessary pieces of seldom align in global public health. There are significant barriers to introduction and scaling products in low and middle income countries. In many cases, the markets are not fully functional, and those who purchase products, including government procurement agencies, donors, and international agencies, they have different needs and constraints than normal consumers. Additionally, innovators themselves are often derailed by requirements unique to health products. Unlike consumers' products, new health products often need national and global regulatory approvals, clinical evidence demonstrating safety and efficacy, as well as acceptance and adoption by health systems. Innovators often lack access to their expertise needed to navigate these complex hurdles that occur in the later stages of the innovation journey. This isn't surprising since global funders and governments, and thus entrepreneurs, have focused investment on early stage innovation and prototyping without full consideration of the entire journey to market. The emphasis on early stage innovation, finding the bright, shiny new things, has resulted in a void of resources to help entrepreneurs cross the finish line. And in most cases, incubators and accelerators are also geared toward the early stage of product development. While this is a welcome trend and investment in early stage innovation is the need of the hour, it is equally important to address the challenges that stand in the way of scaling up innovative products. From the prototype stage to the market ready stage, where they can have widespread impact. So, what are the strategic efforts required to make the shift from lab to market and navigate the development journey of an innovation? See, first, innovators need a well designed clinical validation study to generate good quality data proving the effectiveness of a solution, right? Second is the very critical step of operational validation to aid and inform its adoption by the user. It is also important to ensure that the product gets access to certified laboratories for performance and safety testing and meets national and global standards. Third, at different stages of the product cycle, optimal compliance to navigate the regulatory landscape for product manufacturing and sale, including export, should be adhered. Fourth, it is important to develop an understanding of the complex public health systems in the country, which generally people from different background of engineering and other social background may not understand in the country's landscape, particularly along with developing an understanding of global markets is also important. How the market functions is important to understand. Fifth, at the right time in the development journey of an innovation, it is important to conduct adequate analysis of health economics and market dynamics for ensuring a sustainable business plan. An innovation is nothing without a good sustainable business plan. This becomes crucial because in many cases the markets are not broken and the government procurement agencies, donors, international agencies and others who purchase these products have different needs and constraints compared to consumers of other generic goods and commodities. While these ingredients are crucial for scale up, the complexities involved in integrating and complying with them often leave innovators feeling overwhelmed and prevent even the best ideas from going beyond proof of concept stage. This happens because there is a lack of access to the specialized expertise needed to navigate through these hurdles. On the other hand, in cases where such strategic planning and support to scale up and drive mass adoption has been given alongside product innovation, we have already seen great results. So, for example, innovations for mass adoption with population wide impact. I can go on talking about, say, Ultra Rise, one of the innovation we supported at PATH. I can talk about, say, Freeze preventive vaccine carrier, and let me speak about it. So, Freeze Save, a low-cost freeze preventive carrier designed by PATH, which prevents vaccine from freezing, is on the brink of global adoption. The innovation has shown the potential to address massive vaccine wastage. According to UNICEF estimates, in 5 months in 2011 alone, 1.5 million US dollar worth of vaccine were lost due to freezing. When vaccines come into contact with frozen ice packs, they get damaged and cannot be used. And in order to speed up the carrier's manufacturing and drive adoption at scale, the Freeze Save reference design was put into the public domain for any manufacturer to use it in their vaccine carrier products. PATH also provided technical support to different manufacturers to apply for WHO Performance, Quality and Safety Pre-Qualification (PQS). Today, an Indian-made carrier has used a reference design and passed WHO's PQS laboratory tests for user-independent freeze prevention, which pre-qualifies it for use in global immunization programs. Innovation for the most vulnerable group, women and children. So, for example, building on the remarkable success of the past 2 decades in reducing child maternal mortality around the world, global leaders have set an ambitious goal of ending preventable child and maternal deaths altogether. This objective, entrenched in the UN SDG goals, requires scaling up life-saving and adopting new approaches to prevent needless deaths. Somebody's mic is on. Can you kindly excuse? Dr. Sunil Sembal looks like. Thank you for considering. So last few minutes for me, I would want to talk about more and more innovations that we've supported. Maybe I'll speak about Cyana Press, which is a subcutaneous device. It is an innovative injectable contraceptive for women. Injectable contraceptive are among the world's most popular methods for preventing pregnancy, we know. They offer women safe and effective long-term protection, convenience and privacy. Until now, however, they have not been widely available outside of clinical settings. Cyana Press is one of the products that makes injectable contraception more widely available to women in low resource settings, especially in remote areas. This is a lower dose formulation of a widely used contraceptive that is packaged in a single-use injection system because it is small, lightweight, and easy to use. Any trained person can administer it, including community health workers, pharmacists, and even women themselves. It is registered for self-injection in more than 50 countries, including UK and several European countries, and more than 20 family planning 2020 countries. The WHO has made a strong recommendation for self-injection, stating that it should be made available as an additional approach to deliver injectable contraception for self-care. Similarly, there's a very good innovation of uterine balloon tamponade that we supported. Basically, the problem statement of excessive bleeding after childbirth or postpartum hemorrhage, which is the leading killer of women and adolescent girls during childbirth. So we have a solution for that and how we scaled it up. So basically, in my last few 2 minutes, I just want to specifically conclude by saying all these examples which I gave show how a strategic and carefully managed approach during an innovation's development journey can help it scale up for a high impact. These best practices can be used for other innovations as well, particularly where high efficacy is well established. But the scale up challenges remains. Take TrueNat, for example, which is a portable point of care machine with the potential to benefit thousands of TB patients in low resource settings by enabling an efficient and faster diagnosis. TrueNat, which has been developed by the Indian firm Mole Biodiagnostics, can have huge impact in this area. But for that to happen, it has to be integrated in the public health system and developed in the private sector at scale. The seamless integration of an innovation in both public and private sector health system also has to be planned for and managed carefully. I'll talk a bit about Impact Lab, which has an important vertical in path, an expert system integration platform. Today, we have expert system integrating and not-for-profit platforms like the Impact Lab, a collaboration between Tata Trust and PATH, which are well positioned to support the lab-to-market journeys of innovation. Such initiative seeks to bring critical stakeholders together: government, not-for-profits, private sector and regulatory bodies, and international organizations to support innovators through a well-designed roadmap for their innovations to be adopted by health systems locally and globally. Over and above financial resources, unless the right guidance and support are provided to health innovation, their rapid scale up and impact on health and well-being of millions cannot become a reality. And with this, I'll conclude my session. Thank you so much for having me here. I hope this was useful to all of us here. Thank you so much.
Yes, certainly. Certainly, this is very useful information that you provided. Thank you very much for such a wonderful session and informative talk and being a part of this program. In future also, I would like to connect with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Completely my pleasure. I'll take your leave with this. Thank you.
The next section is very interesting. Being a researcher, I always wonder how I can take my research and innovations to the next level, which ultimately benefits my people. I'm sure many of us would like to know the way we do these kind of things, and so we have someone who can actually guide us in this particular process. Our next speaker, Ms. Pooja Bhatia Vasaikar, the Chief Manager of Innovation Technology Transfer Office at Foundation for Innovations and Technology Transfer, IIT Delhi, and experienced IP and certified licensing professional, also registered technology transfer professionals with a demonstrated history and a decade of experience working in the life science domain. She holds Master of Business Administration focused in Technology Management and National Law University, Jaipur. So I would like to welcome Ms. Pooja Bhatia Vasaikar for her views on innovation and tech transfer. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you for introducing me. Congratulations to everyone for starting this useful program, Headstart, Krishna Institute, MUJ, and all these startups who are going to benefit from it. Because it's not just essential to have funding is definitely critical. Money is important. But then, along with money, you do need the entire support system to bring the product to the market, which is not very easy. And I would also like to thank everyone for making me the only lady in the panel. When I was looking at the creative, I saw I'm the only lady on the panel. But just to start the session on a brighter note, I would like to share that we are also in a starting up mode. We just started in March 2020 before the pandemic arrived, and we are also struggling in a way. The startups are struggling to come up with innovative ideas to help the startups. But after discussing and talking to the startups and innovators and entrepreneurs, we realized there is a lot of common between us. Our vision and mission in the end is same to what the startups and innovators have, which is to improve the innovation ecosystem in the country, to strengthen the process of technology commercialization, to simplify the process, to demystify the whys and hows connected with IP filing and technology transfer. We are part of Foundation for Innovation and Technology Transfer, which is the IP and tech transfer arm for IIT Delhi. It was set up in 1992. Has been supporting innovation ecosystem not just for the for the institute, but also for all the innovators and startups. They already have 3 science parks, 3 innovation centers, incubation centers, and more than 150 startups have already been supported through various funding schemes. We interestingly right now, my team is a women-oriented team, except for one person, Supradeep, who is the gentleman among us, but we all are women, and you can call it as a women entrepreneurial venture. But yes, we are heavier on the women's side as part of the team. We are looking after not just one stakeholder. We are trying to cater to the entire ecosystem, which includes the incubators, universities, institutes, innovation centers, innovators, research and science parks, SMEs, startups, or even an individual or a lone innovator. What kind of services we provide them is quite interesting, because again, we are providing end-to-end services, not just with identifying your innovation, because that is very crucial. Unless and until you identify what is the IP involved in the innovation, you can't protect it accurately. Secondly, you also need to have a strategy to protect your IP well. Unless and until you have a strategy in place, you can't decide the budget that is required. IP is an expensive, IP filing or protection is an expensive process. You definitely need budget for it. So you need to plan ahead, just like you plan for all other activities. Along with IP filing, it's not the end, that you've just filed a patent and that's it. You still have to take it through till its end, till it's granted. You also have to ensure that the IP that you have filed is connected with the entire product life cycle. You can't have a product which is not covered by IP, or an IP which is not covering the product accurately or adequately. So both the things, the IP and the product development or the innovation, has to go hand in hand. They can't be separate. Then once you have the IP file, there are other support ecosystem or supporting partners that you need. You need to take that product, scale it up, develop it further to ensure that it is in a ready form to be launched into the market. Now with healthcare, definitely you need regulatory support as well. So that is where again we come into the picture, help you with identifying relevant partners, institutes, organizations where they have such expertise from our network, connect them with you, with them to help you in developing your product further. We don't just leave you with it, with connecting you with the relevant stakeholders, but we also help you in identifying the technologies which are useful. Now, there is no point reinventing the wheel. If there's already created, developed, available in any of the institutes or any of the other startups, you can easily license that out. Now, when we talk about technology transfer, most of the startups or entrepreneurs believe that there is only one way of doing technology transfer, which is taking the technologies from the institutes. In a way, yes, it is true that you take the technologies developed from the institute and then you can start your startup, or you can have it as a bridging technology. But then again, if there are any technologies in your portfolio which are just lying there, you're not using them, you have filed IP on it, you have invested your time, energy, resources on it, you can still reap the benefits from it. License it out. Look for other potential partners who can take it to the market. It's not necessary that you work on each and every product. COVID time has been a perfect example where startups have come up with products which were not part of their main portfolio, but they have worked on it. I would give you an example of masks, PPE overalls, or how to transport the vaccines safely using cold pack technology. So all these kind of technologies which are addressing the COVID problem and serving as a solution were not part of many of the startups' main portfolio, but they worked on in this direction and came up with such products. So once they had these products, they were not quite sure what they should do, whether they should just sell it on their own or go through the distribution channels or maybe look for other partners. So with 2-3 such startups we connected, we helped them in identifying other healthcare companies which can take up their technologies and help them in generating revenue for themselves. So once the revenue started kicking in, it was possible for them to focus back again on their main product, still having a side stream of revenue for supporting their key activities. So if you have any IP, any idea, any innovation, any technology which you are working on, which is not part of your main portfolio, do consider looking at it from the angle that if you can license it out to anyone. But even for licensing it out to anyone else, you need to ensure it is in a state which can be transferred. So when I say in a state to be transferred, it means it should have at least a POC, because nobody would like to just take up an idea. It should be a workable solution. You should have an IP on it. Even if you don't have an IP, it is still transferable, but having an IP right over it is useful. Whenever you are looking to license it out, ensure that you are not doing an exclusive license, but doing a non-exclusive license so that you can engage with many other companies. And yes, you can license it out to other startups, in fact also to entrepreneurs who are looking to starting out. So you can have a completely different model of payment wherein you take in stake in their companies and still be part of that journey. So that is one way of technology commercialization. There can be others as well. You can kind of sell off the IP outrightly. You don't need to take care of the IP expenses anymore. So that is something related to technology commercialization. We also help startups and innovators with looking for partners for funding or collaborative work for joint ventures, identifying partners for the funding schemes which are there by the government, or just for contracting out their work to somebody else for further development. The other services that we help in are value-added services where you can reach out to us for contract management, reviewing, drafting, screening of the agreements and contracts that you have, helping you with the regulatory pathway, especially for healthcare. You need to know what is the pathway, what is it that you need to, what kind of certifications you need to have in place before the product is launched into the market. Even before the product is launched into the market, what are the processes you need to set up? helping you with the designing part and the prototyping part. There is a very interesting initiative that we are doing as part of the COVID, offering COVID solutions. We are helping in showcasing the technologies developed by the startups to license it out or find partners for further development. And this is a pro bono service that we are doing. We don't charge anything for showcasing the technologies, but if you need our expertise in helping you with the drafting of the agreements and everything, then there's a nominal charge included. But otherwise, we have so far showcased at least 20 plus such technologies through different initiatives and tech showcases that we have done. We also have another scheme where we are supporting startups in filing their patent applications with as Indian patent applications and PCT, which is Patent Corporation Treaty application, that covers just the official fee payable to the patent office and WIPO, and it is like supporting up to 3 lakhs, which will cover the filing fees, request for examination, if you have any microorganisms or gene sequences connected with your innovation, deposition fee for that. In case of PCT, it will cover all 3, which is filing fee, transmittal fee, and search fee. If there are any queries related to the patent filing scheme, you can definitely get in touch with us. Most people ask me that, there are so many law firms or facilitation centers already there helping the startups. So what is it different? What are we doing differently than them? So I would say that, the most important part is that we know you. We are in the same phase. We are starting up. We know what are the pains of going through that entire process, getting the product to the market, connecting with the clients, ensuring that everything comes together as a perfect puzzle. We have a network of experts and consultants which we can help you with connecting with. You don't have to go to different people. We are a one-stop solution shop, not just looking after the IP filing part, but also at the other aspects, which include technology scouting, technology transfer, helping you with searches, analytics. We have paid databases, not just for patent searches, but also for non-patent literature. We have a qualified team, and more essentially, we are part of an IP and tech transfer arm which has been there since 1992, bringing with it 29 years of expertise. So we are there to help you, be with you, and ensure that the journey of innovation goes smoothly. So with this, I would like to end my talk and thank everyone for giving me the chance to speak and share my thoughts.
Wonderful session, Ms. Pooja. Thank you so much for giving this whole information. I'm sure that our audience got complete idea that how they can go for delivering their research and innovations in the market to benefit the society at large. Thank you so much for your time and being part of this program. Thank you so much. So we have a next session in strings of this informative talk. We have with us Mr. Venkatesh Baxter. He is the Innovation Manager at External Innovation Group of Baxter International. Baxter. He oversees scouting and assessment as a part of the global merger and acquisitions team across the medical devices and pharmaceutical, and majorly focuses on open innovation, technologies strategies, portfolio analysis, and technology due diligence. MedTech professionals specialized in identifying unmet needs to generate insight, leading to business recommendations for organic or inorganic growth in both global and emerging markets. Leading a team of engineers and designers to drive the biodesign process in the APAC region. So prior to Baxter, he worked with Boston Scientific and with Singapore Institute of Neurotechnology of Singapore. So I would like to welcome Mr. Venkatesh for his insightful views. Over to you, sir. You there?
Pleasure to be here
with
the group out here, right? And I think I was asked to bring in a perspective of what corporates think and how we can add value into the whole ecosystem. I think which multiple of you have already talked about, and largely from an academic and a government perspective, and also from an impact perspective, right? So I just wanted to give some perspective of medtech or healthcare innovation from a corporate perspective and see how we can start to partner in this journey. I think that KIMSDU has started off and make it more efficient and make it more scalable for the ecosystem at large. So I think given my slot of 20 minutes, I just wanted to break it up into 3 parts. First of all, introduction to myself, what we do at Baxter, how we are organized as a corporate organization, and then in general talk about medtech innovation from what we see as pitfalls. I think Dr. Biju earlier kind of touched upon it, and then kind of elaborate a little bit on some of those points, right? And then I want to actually leave the conversation on the table talking about where Baxter can actually help some of these researchers to scale up and to think about their ideas in a different perspective and actually to avoid some of those pitfalls, right, from a corporate organization standpoint. So first of all, yeah, I've been in the medtech zone, or you can call the healthcare for the last 10 years now, and it's been a growing space of interest, and I think there's much more to happen and then what's happened. So drawing parallels with the consumer industry, I think that's moving at a rapid pace. We are yet to catch up, but that's also good news that we have a lot to catch up and opportunities that we can start to tackle, which I think is what we are here for. Coming to Baxter and where I'm a part of. So Baxter, we are an organization of about $11 billion, primarily operating in the renal care segment. So everything to do with chronic kidney diseases and management of chronic kidney diseases is kind of half of that business, right? So everything to do with dialysis, both at home or in-center dialysis treatments. We cater to multiple of those segments globally. And then we also have businesses around surgical, which is a small portion of the business. And we also have technologies in the ICU from an organ support standpoint, plus also a vertical into pharma. So we are kind of a blend of device and a pharma side to it, right? We have an R&D center that's based in Bangalore. We are about 500 people sitting out of Bangalore. I'm based in Bangalore as well. We have a manufacturing center that's in Ahmedabad, which came through an acquisition about 3 years back, and that's primarily into generics pharma manufacturing. And where I am placed at Baxter is basically the external innovation arm, essentially meaning to say we look for technologies or startups that are outside of Baxter, which may be of strategic interest to Baxter, right? Either from an investment standpoint, venture standpoint, or outright acquisition, or even when you talk about earlier stage technologies, it could be IP licensing and things like that, right? So I am the bridge between, say, Baxter and the outside world from a technology standpoint. The team is small. We are about 5 people. So essentially, we sit down with the businesses, understand strategic areas of interest from a 5-10 pipeline standpoint, map it out and see where could be the technologies that we want to go and talk to or invest in, right? So we have a couple of them in Europe. We have a couple of them in US. So I take care of Asia. My colleagues take care of kind of the rest of the world. Now coming to specifically medtech innovation and some of the things garnering around it, right? I wanted to kind of bring attention to I think the process has been talked about, but when you're early, I think I talk about triple I's, which is essentially the Stanford Biodesign way of looking at it, which is identify, invent, and implement, which is the 3 I's that you look for from an innovation standpoint. And when you're early in your innovations journey, I would say, I think the most important, the critical step is identify that unmet need. And I think this is where there needs to be a cross-pollination between the medical community, which I think largely is representative in this call, and the engineering community who need to come together and solve that need, right? Or understand what is the real problem that you're going to solve. And does that problem have a scale which when solved will be able to be commercialized, right? So I always tell, the medical community has to be engineered and the engineering community has to be doctored, right? So essentially you have to cross-pollinate. I'm an engineer myself. Probably in the last 5 years, I've been in more than 100 cath labs, just looking at procedures, understanding procedures, understanding anatomy, understanding the medical language, because that's when you start communicating between these 2 groups, I think you start to uncover more and more problems that needs to be solved and possibly an efficient way to solve it. So I think Dr. Biju also talked upon when you start to solve a problem. A typical example is, you can have 100 ways to solve the same problem, but which is the most efficient way and which is the way which will actually commercialize that whole solution, I think is the most important one to think about and tinker about. And I think solving or getting that idea or the solution to solve a problem is probably not the big barrier, or like I think Dr. Biju mentioned about value of death. You can find to solve a particular problem, right? But I think where you start to kind of go up the curve is about scalability and how can you kind of really scale up that whole solution ecosystem that you're trying to create. And I think one typical example is we all know Israel is always deemed to be the startup nation. Sorry, I think I'm hearing some.
Yeah, muted it. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think Israel, we all know, is deemed to be a startup nation, but I think now the conversation that Israel wants to have is to say we are a scale-up nation, right? So I think that's where India also has certain barriers that we see even as a commercial organization to start to set up and bring that ecosystem. One could be manufacturing, right? I think there is a significant gap when it comes to manufacturing locally from this ecosystem. That's one area which I'm sure the government organizations and NGOs are also focused on to see how we can start to bridge that gap. And even corporates, I think, are starting to pitch into that conversation, saying, we need that ecosystem to come together if we have to see something scalable that can actually come out of this ecosystem here, right? And that's where I think the role of it could be university groups, it could be startups, it could be anyone else for that matter thinking about an idea, has to think through mentally through this entire journey to really see if whatever they are trying to solve is one which is a real unmet need in a market, and can generate revenue or can be commercialized through one of these channels, right? So that's essentially what I wanted to just touch upon, the medical device innovation, or it can be healthcare innovation. There's also this, I think, blurring of lines that's happening between, say, medical device on one side and pharma on the other side, but also medical device and IT on the other side. Because India being the IT capital to the world, I think we have a lot of digital health innovations that's starting to spring up in our ecosystem out here. And when it comes to digital health innovations, there's always a line between, are you focusing from a consumer health perspective, which is again non-regulated, you're giving out a few parameters, and then it's consumer lifestyle related product that you're trying to cater to, versus are you actually focusing on the medical grade piece of it, right? Now that those two are completely different journeys, and I think bringing awareness for groups or startups who are thinking about some of those things at an early stage will actually help the group to think about in a more granular way and actually pivot whenever needed. So I think even at corporates, even internally, when we start to fund innovation programs, we follow the fail fast and fail frugal method, which is to map out the entire mental journey, and if you need to pivot, you have to pivot, right? There's no other two ways to it. So I think those are some things that we talk about initially when we start about early stage innovation specifically, because, and this is from experience, right? What we've seen is some researchers, just because they have researched a particular field for a few number of years or a greater number of years, they are so attached to that particular way of maybe solving an X problem or a Y problem that they fail to see some of these challenges that may arise in the longer run. So I think being able to be agile and pivot and change modes and speed in, right, just to be on the right track, I think is probably where we also come in. So now, talking about what Baxter does to help the ecosystem, like I told, I think I am based out of Bangalore here, and with the sole motto of looking for technologies, engaging with ecosystems such as this, and I think KIMSDU is doing a great job at setting this first foot into thinking about this aspect of medtech innovation, right? So yeah, the job is to really connect to these groups around the ecosystem here. And in whatever format that we can help, right? Now that could be co-creation models. So if there's a specific area of interest, we give out co-creation models where we offer our lab spaces and others to be used and to advance the research that some of the teams might be doing. and which might be also of business interest to Baxter. One of the examples that I would probably share maybe with the participants after the call is the platform called Halo. So we've just piloted that platform. So it's a platform which connects corporates, specifically on the medtech side, with research organizations or research groups or university groups, or even individuals for that matter. So every year, we as an organization, we give out 3 or 4 problem statements or areas where we are opening for challenges or proposals to come in, right? So there's more of an open innovation approach. And then research groups or individuals are free to put in their proposals to see how they can solve it. So typically, we fund 2 to 3 groups every year, and which might be for a 12 to 18 month period, and based on some agreed timelines and agreed deliveries that we can see, right, over that time frame. So this is mostly for basic science research that we fund some of these proposals. Outside of that, we also do discrete funding in terms of, so when I say discrete, it's essentially some of these confidential areas of strategic interest which the company might have, and which we then scout based on the need of the business. And then we find groups who are exclusively working on certain areas that we could find interesting. And then we do research contracts with those organizations. We've had a couple of those in India at some of the spaces that we can talk about, right? So that's an ongoing engagement for us, which is working well. 2 things for us is, I think as a corporation, we are so large, sometimes we become too slow to accelerate some of these early stage innovations. So getting it done externally through a focused group who's been working on a technology or a problem for a given number of time, I think helps us also as an organization to accelerate our whole innovation journey and bring in more value outside in, right? So because our engineers might be thinking of something in a particular way because that's how they were thinking about it 10 years back. Bringing an outside in perspective, I think helps there as well. And we've seen a good number of examples which have helped us out in that part of it. I think we talked about the IP perspective here, and I think tomorrow there's a day on IP itself. One thing that I wanted to talk about, again, bringing in a corporate view into IP, right? When it comes to, so we do a lot of licensing deals also with universities and university tech transfer offices. One of the hindrances that we've seen, and this is, I'm speaking globally and in comparison to some of the policies around IP from an India standpoint, right? Is I think when we talk about IP generation, I think is very important. Also having the right IP policy or a tech transfer policy from an IP perspective, I think is also equally important, that we have to start to think about even from a policy framing standpoint. It has to create a win-win for both the IP creator or the IP owner with the transferee or the transfer that the handshake happens, right? So I think that's one point that I wanted to just bring about, because there was conversation around IP that was earlier talked upon, right? So yes, so that's basically what I wanted to touch upon and bring in a perspective of where Baxter as an organization is and how we look at innovation, or how we look at supporting innovation and some of those activities, right? So yeah, this is probably what I had in this time frame from my side. Any questions or comments, I think we can discuss. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this informative talk, your precious time to grace this program. And in future, we would like to collaborate with you, sir, for certain acts. We'll definitely contact you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, lastly, to more about trends in research and innovations in pharma and medical domain, we have with us the renowned scientist, Dr. Srinivas Savle. Dr. Srinivas Savle is associated as CEO with the Atal Incubation Center, LMTC, one of the oldest institutions working on medical and pharmacy domain. He was worked in various roles, capacities in healthcare domain. He was the scientist and general manager of Bioevaluation Center at Third Research Center, Ahmedabad, and head Bioanalytic Research. So I would like to welcome Dr. Savle for his views. Over to you, sir. So you there?
So much. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I would like to thank Headstart and KIMS as well as AIC-MUJ for putting such a wonderful initiative together. And especially for the sector, which is deep tech and needs a lot of attention from many stakeholders in the ecosystem if we really want to translate innovation into a successful enterprise. So what I thought is I'll just bring the incubator perspective, how an incubator can help to translate this. So if you can give me access to share the screen, I would like to run through some slides. Yeah, just to brief you, AIC-LMCP Foundation is one of the early batches of Atal Incubation Centers that has been granted to LM College of Pharmacy as the host institute. And this incubation center is focusing on specifically pharmaceuticals and healthcare sector. And as you also mentioned that the host institute LM College of Pharmacy is the first full-fledged independent pharmacy college of the country. So established in 1947. And of course, we are getting into the 75th anniversary next year. And it has produced many graduates in terms of B.Pharm, as well as masters and PhDs from this institute. And we can see the alumni spread across the globe, which are leading entrepreneurs in pharma sector, they are government officials or regulatory experts, scientists and academicians, which are, they are carrying the flag of this institute's legacy of quality pharma education. And that's what makes this institute apt to host such an incubation center, which is focusing on the pharma and healthcare sector. So, not to mention, the focus is not entirely on the research, but taking the research to the market. So, we have various innovation and entrepreneurship initiatives, such as Institutional Innovation Council, then Student Startup and Innovation Policy we are implementing for Government of Gujarat, and the Atal Incubation Center, which further takes these ideas from prototype to the next level. So the basic objective of this center has been to taking the innovative idea in this pharma and healthcare sector to a successful enterprise. So to do that, as an incubation center, we have identified some of these key focus areas. Of course, this is not the complete list, but we see that we can add a lot of value if somebody has an innovative idea for novel drug delivery systems or technologies, tailor-made equipments or packaging solutions for this industry, novel active pharmaceutical ingredients, excipients, phytopharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, or even novel testing tools, like we were listening to some of the IIT Madras's innovations, and also medical devices or even diagnostics for specific diseases. There's a lot of thrust on the healthcare tools and solutions. So not only the IT, IoT, AI, ML based solutions, but also the medical modalities or the treatment modalities such as pharma and biopharma products that are helping to alleviate the disease conditions, and also anything which helps to advance patient care. Not only that, we are also supporting the ideas or the innovations in the alternative medicine, including Ayush systems as well as paramedical sciences and food and nutrition. So for that, we have established state-of-the-art laboratories here, which otherwise are very difficult for the innovators to access. So this infrastructure helps them to test their product or develop their products on site. And not only that, we also give access to these innovators to the excellent rich library, as well as being oldest pharma institute, we have a lot of expertise in this area, and all the faculties are available for mentoring technically to these innovators. And we also have a state-of-the-art animal house facility. So if somebody is really working on molecule to market concepts, so we can walk them through all the phases of discovery, development, and marketing. And being an incubator, we also are providing co-working spaces and other required infrastructure for these incubators. So as an incubator, we try to provide 360-degree support for an innovator and handhold them through their journey of entrepreneurship. So we have a lot of domain expertise in various facets of pharma and healthcare sector. We definitely mentor also and facilitate the funding needs of these startups or the innovators. So that can be through the government agency funding, angel investments, or connects with the venture capitalists. Of course, when it comes to other support, be it the business support in terms of business strategy or marketing, this sector also needs a lot of support for the legal understanding and protecting their intellectual properties, as one of the speakers also was mentioning. And this sector being very regulatory intensive, it is very essential that the innovators build correct regulatory understanding and build this strategy right from the beginning. And of course, supply chain is a challenge for some of the products, as we listened from another speaker in this discussion. What further adds value is extending the collaborations that the AIC-MUJ has with different corporates, industries, research institutes, and other ecosystem partners such as Headstart and others. And we have a rich pool of mentors from diverse background and specialization. So we also have IP attorneys and legal folks on board as mentors. And not to mention also the technical experts of various facets of this sector, be it pharma, be it food, nutrition, Ayurveda, or you talk about technology. So that is something which is very essential for the innovators to fall back on. And of course, we have this strong alumni spread globally, as most of them are key opinion leaders in their own sectors. So we provide local pan-Indian global network for these innovators to take their technologies to. And as an incubator, it's very important to create a vibrant ecosystem around, and we keep engaged not only the innovators, but the ecosystem players, the thought leaders, the mentors connected. Yeah. Can I request to mute others? Thank you. So that's where we bring in the ecosystem players, and we also do a lot of cross-learning by which we are bringing the startups, successful startups in this sector, to share their stories with the budding innovators and entrepreneurs. So we do conduct something called as Pharma and Healthcare Innovation Summit. It's like 2 times a year, and this is where all stakeholders, be it students, faculty, you talk about investors, industry, stalwarts. We also bring in government agencies and investors together so that the innovators can showcase their technology and they get best fits. So we have established this good network of collaboration with the corporates. So you can see some of the major leading pharma companies like Zydus, you have Intas, Troika, Amneal. All these corporates have joined hands with us to support incubators of the startups in their journey. And there are many university collaborations, academic collaborations, where we can have the necessary technical handholding as well as infrastructure accessibility extended to all these startups. And of course, the ecosystem partners like ECHA, India Build, Headstart, they help us bringing the right connects in the ecosystem to help the innovators to go to the next level. And of course, we also give a lot of, you can say, media attention for the startups or the events that we are doing for the startups. So that generates curiosity in the sector about the startup. So in the last 3 odd years, we have established, and this is our scorecard, we can say, we have about 26 startups. They were associated with us, and they could fetch grants of 1.2 crores. We also support women-led entrepreneurship. So that's where we have 8 out of 26 startups have women co-founders. And the startups also have filed patents and generated employment. So that is something encouraging for us. So if you look at, I'm just showing some of the startups with whom the startups whom we are supporting. So there are hardcore product-based startups such as Anya, which is working on oral delivery of peptides. Repligene is working on plasmids and gene therapy and cell therapy. QRL is bringing next generation, you can say, innovative solution to control healthcare-associated infections, and also on the cell therapy of diabetic foot ulcers. Templace focuses on enzymes that are required for manufacturing of biopharmaceuticals. NDF is again working on a niche area of functional foods, where these foods can help for weight loss and inflammatory disorders. Inspirochem is working on import alternatives for the pharma industry with respect to custom synthesis of intermediates, building blocks, and impurities. We have tech-led startups as well, where you can see here Redicin is working on a medication adherence device, which is a software-hardware combination working on ML and AI. Bionics is bringing health monitoring and environment monitoring device, which is as small as a matchbox and which can help us to monitor individual environment and have also the alerts for certain exposures. If we see here, this particular startup, which is bringing an innovative teaching aid, and his objective is to replace all the experimental animals. And this, again, software hardware device from Explore Remedies will bring kind of a innovation in the medical education and pharmacy education, where animals are used for experimentation. Rises has been working on high-tech healthcare AI solution, which is basically to extending the diagnostic decision-making support to the medical professionals. And they have an innovative technology called treatment response assessment predictions, which can help for chronic treatment for the chronic diseases. Nurster is working on a wireless nurse calling device, which is a need of the hour. Otherwise, the hospitals have a very infrastructure-heavy nurse calling system, which is not that efficient. AIC is bringing something called as electronic tongue, and he has been offering these services to majority of big pharma companies, where artificially sensory evaluation of taste, odor, and flavor can be offered. There are a few other IT-IoT-based startups also working in the pharma and healthcare sector. Some are Vizarma is trying to bring visibility in the supply chain for hospitals and pharma companies, while eVital is trying to provide a SaaS-based technology for the retail pharmacies, where they can have complete visibility of their operations. Vizwas has come up with a nasal filter, which is transparent and which can help to prevent pollution hazards. Pure Cups is working on a reusable menstrual product. The product is also in the market, and they are evolving further. Calling Health is bringing IoT-enabled Medicare shopping engine, while MedGreen is working on seamless delivery of pharmaceuticals and lab testing. So if you look at this particular set of startups here, they are more onto the Ayurvedic products or the nutrition and phytopharmaceuticals. So Eximberg brings some products in FMCG, which are Ayurveda with modern touch, as the tagline says. Niraru is working on some of the Ayurvedic products in diabetes and immunity segment. Surya Cure, actually, we also conduct some of the competitions, and one of the competition is about traditional remedies. So Surya Cure has come up with traditional wisdom to treat psoriasis, which is productizing and taking to market. Salus Food Testing Labs wants to work on the niche food testing services. Anvistat had brought a herbal hemostatic formulation as a part of a first aid kit. MTAG has actually got the biggest grant from MHRD to develop this drug integrity management platform, which is again AI/ML leveraging tool, which can tell you how much drug is left in the formulation at any given point in time. And Bellapure had started on the Pharmaceuticals, and which he further wants to develop into antibody drug conjugates. So these are like varied startups, and of course we are proud of their success stories. Like Rises was the top 10 AI-based startup, which was identified by a COVID-19 task force of Government of India for contactless entry. MTAG also got several grants and awards and also filed an Indian patent. Niraro also got some funding. Redison Medsol became one of the 13 teams from Asia Oceania working on the SDG3 globally through the Unleash Challenge. And he also has filed Indian patent. Also at the Incubation Center, we have become the nodal institute to implement the scheme to assist startups or innovation by the Gujarat Industrial Policy, through which we can support them for funding, seed funding up to 30 lakhs and social impact fund up to another 10 lakhs. We also got MSME Incubator nomination. So we are waiting for the formal approval so that we can start supporting the entrepreneurial and managerial development of MSMEs through our incubation center. So a typical workflow, like we invite applications from the innovators, and then through the scrutiny, we select the startups for further support. And of course, we support them till their graduation. So we can offer both virtual and physical incubation, and we can support any ideas or innovations. The physical location is not the limitation, but we would like to help anybody with innovation which is scalable and sustainable in the pharma and healthcare area. So you can connect with us. This is the email ID, and this is a website. You can take further information, or you can also connect through KIMS or Headstart. And this is what I just wanted to bring to all the audience, because the initiative is especially for the medical, pharma and allied sciences innovation, and that's where we also would like to support these innovators to go to the next level. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much for your words. It's a wonderful talk and precious time that you have spent here to motivate inventors and researchers. We will definitely would like to collaborate with you for such a wonderful activities, and in future also we'll contact you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So at the last, I must say it's really very impactful sessions we had today for this Impact Award program. I hope you all have enjoyed a lot. Last, I'm very fortunate to be part of KIMSDU, because KIMSDU management always supported us to organize such programs and promote the research and innovation activities. I would like to thank all the organizers here, Headstart Network Foundation, Atal Incubation Center, Manipal University, then SPPU Research Park Foundation for all the supports they have provided, supported by this Atal Incubation Mission, and all the ecosystem partner, IIT Madras by Incubator, Atal Incubation Center, OJAS Accelerator at IIT Hyderabad and Manipal University, a commercialization partner, IIT Delhi. So at the last, it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Divya Prithwani for giving the vote of thanks for this program. Divya is the Chief Executive Officer at AIC-MUJ. also a startup community leader at Headstart. In less than 1 year, he has made huge impact on healthcare ecosystem by launching some of major initiatives to fight COVID and by supporting startup. One such ongoing major challenge is Covisol, which has received a huge support from startup communities. So, welcome, Mr. Divya. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jayant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the curators, Dr. Jayant from KIMS team, and Mukesh leading from the Headstart team, the other members of the Headstart team for this wonderful curation. The best part is the name, that is impact. I mean, that's what we all are here for. All of us in this forum, leaders who are enabling innovation day in, day out in this domain of healthcare, pharma, life sciences, and we are all here. We are all here to serve the nation and enable the impact that we desire for. So a great name. Kudos to that. Secondly,
thanks to all of you.
The initiative was started wonderfully, as always, by Dr. D.K. Agarwal. I mean, his energy and enthusiasm has inspired a lot of innovators to bring forth their ideas into reality. Thanks for that, Dr. D.K. Agarwal. Then the Vice Chancellor of KIMS, Dr. Mishra, who graced the occasion with her kind words. And it was great to know about the innovations and the programs that UN undertakes in healthcare sector. From Dr. Biju Jacob, it was great to learn about the insights that how UN is enabling innovation in healthcare sector. When Professor Narayan spoke about the entire IIT Madras ecosystem and how the bio incubator is facilitating startups and innovations in this sector, the vast ecosystem that IIT Madras has been able to build over many years now, that was inspiring to note. As an incubation leader myself, I mean, it was very, very inspiring. Then Mr. Mohammed Amil, who explained about the initiatives of PATH in healthcare technology and enabling innovation. It was great to learn about how PATH is enabling innovation and bringing value out in the market. And Ms. Pooja, one very important component of enabling innovation is IP, especially these days when a lot of valuation is driven by intellectual property in the markets. Thanks for sharing your insights, Ms. Pooja, and especially representing ITTO, FITT, IIT Delhi, one of the most recognized and esteemed organizations that enables technology commercialization and especially with respect to intellectual property. Mr. Venkatesh, thanks for your words. With respect to how Baxter International has been enabling innovation and how you as an individual have a deep experience and deep knowledge in this domain. That's what is required to enable innovation. Dr. Srinivas Savle, the kind of ecosystem and deep expertise you have led AIC LMCP with, it is inspiring to note that. It is inspiring to know how you have built that highly focused ecosystem that any pharma or healthcare innovator would really want to associate with you. Such dignitaries, such leaders on a single forum, it is, I'm humbled to share my gratitude to all of you for making available yourself for this initiative. And also thanks to Dr. Jain for sharing about Covisol. Covisol, we have received over 150 entries I mean, 3 months back, we were just thinking that suddenly there has been a U-turn in how India was going through that tough period in COVID wave 2 in April and May. And right then, the Vice Chancellor of our university, Manipal University, Jaipur, Dr. G.K. Prabhu, came up with this solution that we as a university, supported by Atal Incubation Center, should come up with that a platform for innovators to come and deliver their solutions in the market, and we should support them with whatever resources we have. And that's when CoviSolve was born. And over the last 2 months, we have had multiple sessions in CoviSolve, and we have reached out across the ecosystems. And we are so humbled to receive some amazing innovative solutions in healthcare and allied sectors, because there are a lot of direct and indirect challenges COVID wave 2 has posed to the country, and which was totally unprecedented. And the way innovators are coming up with solutions to, just beat those challenges, that is inspiring. And that's what drives us as enablers to go forward and, work towards our mission. And it is really tough to really select the best innovative solutions out of the pool. However, in the course of next few months, we will be selecting the top innovative solutions, and we will be awarding them with a lot of support systems, including talent, advisory, capital, technology, IP support, and we will be taking help from all the dignitaries present here to enable that support. It is a great opportunity. Again, thanks to Dr. Jayant, Mukesh, for giving me this opportunity to share the gratitude to all the eminent dignitaries present here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Deva, for supporting this event and your presence. Vote of thanks. Thank you so much. Mukesh, you there?
Yeah, Dr. Jain, I am here. Thank you so much for leading the session, as well as to whole dignitaries and all the speakers who was here. And I also thanks to AIC-MUJ for supporting this wonderful initiative over here. And with all this, I really thanks to audience as well for joining us, and looks forward to you seeing tomorrow at 4 p.m. Thank you.